Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this iteration of the Articulation series, in which, at the culmination of the study between artist and rabbi, we have a wonderful opportunity to present their findings, to have space to share art and Torah in a very meaningful way. And today we have the honor of having the presentation of Kate Lenkowsky, this week's Jewish Artist of the Week, who has spent much of her life in textiles and embroidery art. And in 2008, the Indiana University Press published her book, Contemporary Quilt Art, an Introduction and Guide. She has lectured at the university in Indiana and has her art presented in textile museums at Baylor University in Washington, D.C. We also have the great honor to have before us Rabbi David Evan Markus, Esquire, who in his first career was resided on the judicial referee in the New York Supreme Court and the 9th Judicial District, graduate of Harvard Law, and in his second career is a rabbi at the Temple Beth El. He's the founder of Bayit, Building Jewish, graduate of Aleph, and is also a co-chair at Aleph. A very accomplished set of speakers that we have today, and we're very honored with both of their presences. Without further ado, Rabbi, would you like to unmute yourself and frame the Parsha for us?
Looks like we made it. The 10th plague has happened, and off we go. And so pivotal is this moment that traditional Jewish liturgy returns us to it twice a day, every day. We are the ones for whom the sea split. We are the ones who split the sea. We are the ones who are taken across. And if we are forgiven for looking back for a moment and wondering, what have you done for me lately? I would have been better in Egypt. We can imagine ourselves looking back and wondering in this moment, how did we get here? Can we go back to what was normal? What are the seas we're moving through now? What have we forgotten how to do? Have we forgotten how to pick up a timbrel and dance? What are the seas that we are trying to traverse now? It's really right on the nose, Torah. And everything that we are flows from this. And think about it. Had the sea not split, end of story. And this ending becomes a beginning. So it was in that context that Kate and I began a dialogue about what it means to be moving through, and people who were named for moving through, the Ivrim, the boundary crossers, the moving throughers, the Hebrews, that's where Ivrim led to etymologically. And who are we relative to that? That's really where it begins. Now, there are so many ways to interpret this. We can go there theologically. We can ask the fundamental question, is it God that split the sea? Is it us that split the sea? And of course, being Jewish, which one is it? The answer is yes. We have midrash for both. And so too in this moment. How high or how deep within do we look for the sea to split, or do we do it by our own action? And what is it that the splitting of the sea reveals below? And what does it reveal about us? And by what power do we move? Those questions are timeless. Maybe it's appropriate that we return to them in traditional liturgy twice a day, every day. And it's appropriate that it comes now in Jewish time, in secular time. Talk about moving through and perhaps also feeling stuck. So that binarism between moving through and being stuck, being taken and moving through our own efforts, having no choice but to go forward and being very eager to go forward, and being scared blankless to go forward, and then having gone forward and celebrated, where do we go from here? Oh, wouldn't it have been better had we been left in Egypt? Let's go back. Does it feel familiar, friends? No wonder we come back to this twice a day. The binarisms there find expression in the dialogue that Kate and I had, in the art that came through, in the words that came through, and I suspect in the competing and mutually weaving impulses like so many DNA strands moving through all of us. There's something pivotal about the human spirit. So much so that this Parsha and the experience it provokes became the fount of liberation theology for every tradition in Western civilization, especially poignant as we come around the corner toward Dr. Martin Luther King Day. So that's our setting. That's where we begin. And I hand it off to Kate.
Thank you. Thank you, David. My approach to the artwork, which is what I will talk about first, and Devere, if you want to put it on up, that's fine right now. My approach to the artwork was really that of a story, telling a story, but not one that ends. Picking up where Rabbi Markus has, Rabbi Markus has noted, the story continues to the present. So in my Jewish education, one of the things that I've learned is that the Jewish day begins at night. So if we look at the bottom of the piece, there's darkness and there's chaos in the sea itself, which is suggestive of many things. It's suggestive of the terrors of life under the Pharaoh, the sinking of his army like lead into the sea, the difficulties faced through the Middle Ages and through later centuries in Europe, up through the Shoah and beyond. We have a divided sea of reeds, the path taken by the Hebrews both then and in later generations. If we look at the figures coming through, we have the confidence of some, the faith of some demonstrated, especially the women who were packing timbrels at the suggestion of Miriam, the prophetess Miriam, the older sister of Moses. So we have women coming through with their children, with confidence. We have pregnant women, a pregnant woman carrying her timbrel. Many generations later, we have an older woman with her pocketbook and her timbrel. We have older men and we have younger men, one of whom perhaps is a college student and maybe a little bit uncertain about moving through the mud, about taking the risk. Okay, so as we move upward, we see Miriam at the edge of the sea, looking into the wilderness, into the white sand, but also looking toward the sky in the center, the representation of God through the cloud. Miriam has her timbrel, or the cloud actually represents God, hidden or present. Present for these people and hidden for us today. We also have very visible are the women and with their timbrels, the women who had faith, and Miriam is leading them in song and dance. There are several instances in the Torah of women coming out after military victories with their timbrels and dancing. So this is a tradition. I think that though with Miriam, this is the first time. And I'd like to mention here something that I read recently. Leon Cass has a new book called Founding God's Nation, Reading Exodus. And when we got it, when it appeared on our doorstep, I opened it right away to see what he had to say about this period in the Torah, this story. And Cass notes the swirling dancers, the celebrating of their release from the recent terror and giving expression to their praise and gratitude to the divinity for saving them. But he also notes that there's a danger here, dancing on the graves of your enemies. So he writes of a suggestion when they were discussing this in his study group, which forms the basis of his book. He notes the danger, but then he writes of a suggestion by one of his students that by dancing, the women may be reasserting the supremacy of the principle of life against the largely masculine battle glory singing of the men, that the women may be celebrating rebirth through the waters of the Israelite nation. So then if I go back, I want to just mention that the colors that were used in this work, particularly the embroidered thread that outlines the dancing women and some of the patches in the upper section, are the same colors. These are the purples, the blues, and the reds that these women would later be weaving into the making of the coverings for the Mishkan, which is the physical reminder of the presence of God while the Israelites were wandering. To the left in the center, or to the right in the center, is an embroidery suggestive of the Miriam's well. Devere, with a picture beside it, just in case you didn't get that was water, which reminds us of the Midrash, which tells us that whenever the Israelites thirsted during their years in the desert, the well appeared until the death of Miriam, when it disappeared for good. Okay, so what I would just like to take a few minutes then to share with you my journey through this fellowship. So when asked about what theme I might be interested in at the start, I mentioned gratitude and was thinking of Leah's experience as the second wife of Jacob and how she finally, with the birth of Judah, I believe he was the fourth of her children, whose name is derived, and Judah's name is derived from Hoda'ah, which means gratitude. Leah was finally able to thank God for the gifts that he had bestowed on her, even though he knew that Jacob would never love her. When David and I met online to talk about Beshalach, he was very sure there was no mention of gratitude in it. Rather, this parsha was about faith. We had some interesting back and forths about this, described by Devere as at one point as fiery. But Devere seemed to be delighted by this difference. Okay, he said, so why is there no gratitude? And maybe that is a subject we could look at a little bit later. All this sent me back to my commentaries, the reading of my commentaries, mostly by recent writers about gratitude and about faith. It was fascinating to me as a convert who, outside of the research for two other art pieces on biblical figures, I'm not very familiar with the literature, and I'm still astonished that the writings, the interpretations, the discussions, the disagreements even have been going on over thousands of years and still continue. As I read and worked, my piece became much more about gratitude, much more than gratitude, and whether the Israelites had it or not. The reading itself on the subject was very interesting. Now, Miriam, Moses' older sister, became more important. Both she and Nachshon, prince of the tribe of Judah, who was the son of Leah, had faith. Miriam's was demonstrated several times prior to the plague, and certainly when she advised the women to pack timbrels for the coming celebration, even as they fled Egypt. Can you imagine stopping to pack musical instruments when you're fleeing slavery? Nachshon, according to the Midrash, was the first to plunge into the sea as others hesitated. Their story, the stories of these two also became inspirational when I discovered that God rebuked Moses before splitting the seas for telling the Israelites to be patient, that God would save them. Instead, they must step forward. They must pioneer. They must take risks. What Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has said is a significant part of being a Jew, to have the courage to pioneer. Faith is the courage to take a risk, for you are with me. Their relationship with God is to be a partnership, even when God's presence is not visible, these commentators said. When his presence was not visible, was not felt, and not only when he was performing stupendous miracles. The cloud in the center at the top represents that partnership to me, both representing God, but also hiding him. De Vere asks in the discussion questions, which of the growth trajectories suggested by the color contrast do viewers aspire to by the end of 2022? For me, it's the mud and the white sands. For me, the aspiration is to continue my reading, closer reading, I might add, and learning about Judaism and Torah. So just one piece of this is to delve into questions such as his. Is gratitude mentioned in the text? If it isn't, why not? So with that, I'm going to turn it back to David and De Vere. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm really happy to talk about the work.
Oh, thank you, Kate. And thank you for just a very moving tribute to our partnership and to all that came through, looking for and transcending what we were individually looking for, which seems metaphorical, frankly, for the work itself and for the text. Because the way I read the text, our ancestors didn't know what the heck they were doing. They didn't know what they didn't know. And as I write about, it seems pivotal that in Exodus 14, right before the sea splits and off they go, they are between two physical places that are named in Torah, and it's so easy to overlook these place names. One was Piachirot, which is very closely connected to the mouth of freedom. It's like the cusp of freedom. Here we go. And Ba'alat Tzafon, literally the master of hiddenness. Like the Afikoman stage in the Passover Seder, which is called Tzafun, hidden. So here they are, poised between liberation and hiddenness, feeling very stuck. Here comes the Yul Brynner chariot scene from the Ten Commandments, and the sea is right there. And as Kate very aptly indicated, Moses goes and prays, and God says the equivalent of, "What are you praying to me for? Go!" And from that comes all the midrash about Nachshon going all the way forward until the waters were up to the nose, and the micha mocha is the sound of the gurgling ready to drown. That the faith level required to do that to put one's own life on the line, sometimes is the highest level of faith of all. You know, it's one thing to be heady, it's one thing to be emotional, but to really put our bodies, our lives on the line, that's pretty wow. And only then do the waters begin to subside and then split, and that would be the shift from michamocha to mikamocha, because someone who's choking can't say k. Really an exceptional midrash to me. My own journey through this began with a project that I've been working on in my congregation on the theme of Jewish resilience. And like the word gratitude in this parsha, it turns out that there's no native Hebrew word for resilience, which I was shocked to learn. There's also no native Hebrew word for religion. They're both a little bit like the water we swim in. I was looking for this material because if you're a human right now, you know that life sometimes can be quite difficult. I'm in the New York area. My congregation has been through it a time or three during this pandemic. And some of the things that my community is asking me to offer are Jewish resilience tools. And here comes this parsha. Does resilience mean going forward when we don't know how to go? Is resilience going where we can't yet see, but having an inner vision that we're heading somewhere? Is it, as Kate was suggesting, that pioneering spirit for which Jewish ancestry is so famously known? I didn't know. And I think our ancestors didn't know. How could they possibly? All they did was get out of Dodge, and now they're stuck. Against that backdrop, I began to imagine the way that an artist might depict the scene. And people who know me know very much that I am not in the slightest a visual artist. I cannot draw a straight line even with a ruler. So all I can do is evoke my own imagination and try to image what I imagine someone who is visually attuned, like a Kate, might see in this parsha. And it occurred to me, of course they had to go where they couldn't see. That's the very definition of walking on the bottom of the sea. Think about it. The water usually absorbs the light. We can only see the first few inches or the first few feet, and darkness reigns below. But when the sea split, our ancestors literally walked on dry land at the bottom of the sea. And I don't know about you, but it was kind of an aha moment to me that they were walking on land that perhaps never had been revealed before, that had never seen the light before. That is the definition of moving forward toward liberation, because we haven't been there. And perhaps it is our own steps that will reveal and turn toward the light, steps, paths that never have been taken before. That maybe holding that possibility or helping each other hold that possibility is the definition of resilience. And the word that I've come to understand Judaism to most closely approximate to resilience, it's not just a springing back. Like hit osheshut has this connotation of inner healing. That by undertaking the resilience journey, it's not just springing back to some old normal, like a rubber band going boing and coming back, but an inner transformation. And so, of course, in that moment where the light was touching ground that perhaps had never seen the light before, our spiritual ancestors, according to Midrash, all became prophets. They were all prophesying in that moment, with Pharaoh and Yul Brynner running right behind them, not knowing anywhere they're going, not knowing how this is happening. Maybe with faith, maybe with gratitude. The text doesn't say. All it says is, there they went. And they reached the other side, and the women picked up their timbrels and taught the people again how to sing, how to dance. That the resilience journey is leading toward that sense of embodied celebration, which also caught me by surprise. Because the Midrash, and this comes straight out of Talmud, says that the angels were having it out, whooping and hollering too. And God rebuked the angels, saying, "My children are drowning and you sing praises." But Miriam and the women are not rebuked. And they're singing, "Ashiru ladonai ki ga'oga'a." I will sing to God because God's pretty cool. Susvarach ba'oram avayam. God and horse and chariot been hurled into the sea. And for this, the women weren't rebuked. Could it be that they needed to teach resilience and that was more important? Are the angels held to a higher standard? I don't know. Far be it from me to know. It's literally above my pay grade. But the colors of Kate's rendition, to me, led us through that journey. If we can put it back up, yeah, perfectly. There's the pathway. The dry ground never revealed before, light for the first time, actually becoming lighter as you reach upward, coming out of the darkness, then the blue of the water, out of the chaos, and then into an ever more light unknown. There it is. Yeah, there it is. Leading higher and higher into the blue that would become the mystical sapphire brickway that the 70 elders would later come to see in the cloud by day to lead them on. To go precisely where we don't know to go. To go where only our own steps will reveal. Maybe that's the very definition of resilience. To not need to see with our outer vision, but to hold each other up and go on our way. So thank you, Kate, for giving all of this form, literally out of formlessness. Whether gratitude appears in the text or not, I certainly feel it. And I hand it back. You are sounding absolutely brilliant in a very muted kind of way. Not yet.
Just click the unmute.
How is that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so I'm unmuted. Okay, so first of all, thank you, David. It is not untypical that people who look at artwork see things that the artist is only beginning to realize he or she might have put into that work or meant. And also that it's wonderful to hear the interpretations of people of one's artwork that only expand the meaning, and I I love it. So I do want to say something. You were talking about resilience, and we of course have talked on and off a little bit about gratitude.
And on and on.
And on, right. And it strikes me that I have accepted you, and you have accepted me just fine. So we're good here. But I did want to say that that in some of the readings that I have done by people like Rabbi Shai Held, in talking and also in my own life experiences, true gratitude requires action. and and that action is often a repayment in some way or another. And also to have true gratitude, you get there in steps. And sometimes those steps are backwards, and most of the time, hopefully, they are forwards, or it's not true gratitude, I suppose. But you had mentioned in your talk about the collective helping of one another, maybe, and that can show gratitude. So that's a form of showing gratitude, certainly. And you're talking about the Israelites. Maybe they did do this after they got over to the other side, so to speak.
All midrash, right? The text doesn't literally say, but some of the popular depictions in movies. I mean, if you think back to the Ten Commandments, or there are any number of animated versions. Every single one of them in this moment, someone's helping someone, another person is stuck and they're being lifted out of the mud. I mean, they all go there. There's this need, I think, in the human spirit to project a sense of gratitude onto the thing that saves us. We are to regard ourselves as if we have come through. So it's not them, it's us. And every single one of them depicted this. It's not in the text, which is great.
Yeah. So why isn't it? So is it because...
Oh, that's above my pay grade.
Devere, do you have a comment on this? You asked the question.
I think something that was very beautiful that you both spoke to is that it came from your own mouths. So I think that it's very beautiful to share with everyone tonight is the idea that gratitude is a process, and where they were in that moment, in just having not been able to have a sense of their own time, of their own day-to-day, kind of being controlled to the minutia of their own aspirations for a future, not having any of that, to be able to have a sense of gratitude is a process. And in your picture, you depict that process of from that darkness, from that bottom, that only like gratitude isn't in the awe of one single moment, isn't in just inspiration that you were saved in one moment. But in our prayer, we say gratitude every morning. Gratitude comes from a process of seeing awe in the mundane and not being able to, of course they were very happy in that moment, but were they grateful? I think that that's kind of an interesting idea that also emerged from your conversations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm noticing there are some questions for Kate in the chat box. There's at least one hand raised in the room.
Yeah. Let's first address the questions in the chat box, and then we'll open it up for everyone. Zach Goldsmith asks about the technical aspects of your work. Where do you get your fabrics? How do you pick the colors, the patterns, etc.?
Okay, well, let me just say that offers me an opportunity to just say something briefly about the kind of work I do. I started out as a quilt maker, and I still make quilts. But I became interested a number of years ago through a study project at the World Cultures Museum at Indiana University, where I live nearby. We were doing some research in the close examination of pre-Columbian Peruvian textiles. So I became then very, very interested in the weaving process. This led to interest into West African textiles and the rhythms that the that they're stitched together, narrow weavings imbued in their work. The rhythms are just wonderful. Art museums brought me the work of Annie Albers and Gunther Stossel, who were working in Bauhaus weaving and that type of structure. And Albers also did then go on to study Peruvian textiles and to write about them. I also, another influence has, in my embroidery in particular, has been the relief prints of Matisse and the German expressionists, especially Kath Kolb and Ernst Barlach. So those are some of the major influences in the way in which I work. I've just brought the embroidered line, something which I just picked up as a young woman and began putting into my own work. I love line, and as a printmaker, as a relief, learning the process of relief printmaking just enhanced my appreciation of that aesthetic. So the fabrics are a combination of fabrics which I have painted and fabrics which I purchased commercially, which are often known as quilters' cottons. The colors are primarily, that I use in this work, are primarily works that I just envisioned when I imagined this scene, and those that I used because of the colors that appeared, the colors that were, some of the colors were used by the Middle Eastern and ancient in ancient textiles, and of course those that I mentioned, the colors that were used in the weaving of the Mishkan, that are the Mishkan covers that and curtains that appear, that are mentioned in the Torah. So I hope that answers your question, Zach.
Can you also speak to the specific parts of the embroideries? How did you, like the cloud? What's involved in this piece?
The cloud I thought about for a long time. I thought, I'm just going to figure out how to make an applique piece, which is cut fabric and attached by stitches to a surface. But ultimately what I decided would make the best cloud is just a group of very small little, what are called chain stitches in embroidery. They have a very bubbly effect. Unfortunately, you can't see it very well in this unprofessional photograph. I will change that later. You'll get a professional photograph for the website. But these little chain stitches, that's basically hundreds and hundreds of little white chain stitches on top of each other and under each other. So, and the rest of it, this is called stem stitch. So most of this is called stem stitch. And using techniques of print and line, print relief. Some of them are widened, and some are wide and some are narrow.
Bria asks about the depiction of the women, and can you speak to what your thoughts were of how to design their dance, to design the choreography of how they're laid out, and perhaps why there are 7 of them in particular?
Well, there are 7 once again because of the numbers of this special number that is repeated so often in the Torah. It's you know, along with the 7 blossoms over here on the plants. It's just it seems to have some special significance, and that's why I used it. The women, I wanted to put I wanted to demonstrate rhythm, and I tried to do that through the placement and also the reverberations of the timbrels as they might have been struck. Yeah, so, and then just considerations of composition on the whole, in the whole piece. So that's basically the reason for that particular layout.
And also these purples, they feel anomalous to the white sand. What symbolism, what intention? I think that was part of the discussion that you had with Rabbi. I don't know if Rabbi David, you want to also speak to it as well.
Oh, the purples. So often my congregants ask me about chosenness. We are the chosen people, which gives rise to so many jokes. God, thank you so much. Every so often, could you please choose somebody else? But chosen does not exist in the traditional Hebrew. It is a misunderstanding, a mistranslation that came out of one of the Christian translations of Am Segula. I took you to me on eagle's wings. I brought you to me. If you hearken to my voice, if you be the people I'm asking you to be, then to me you will be Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. You will be a holy sovereignty, a holy servant people, and you will be to me an Am Segula. Am nation. Segula is the question. Does it really mean chosen? Not so much. It means really treasured, but it's also sort of a pun because the word for purple is also segol. And so I half joke to my congregants, we are the purple people. But purple was the color of royalty back in the day. If we behave a certain way, if we really take this into the world, then we are that spiritual royalty, which I understand to be not necessarily limited to a particular ancestry or a particular creed. These are building blocks of royalty. It's our birthright to have that opportunity, but it ain't a given. That's how I understand Am Segula. And I suspect that's some of why purple came in.
Thank you.
Following that discussion, yes.
We're the purple people.
Richard, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and Kate and David. Thank you so much for your illuminating presentation. Set me to thinking about a lot of things. But asking the question about gratitude is, to me, the event of the evening. And thinking about it, you're right. There's no sense of gratitude, but I think there's very good reason for that. Maybe, in fact, it's even linked to the fact that the women are not criticized, but the angels are. To kind of like live within the metaphors, the angels are up in heaven, and they reacted. Well, we're so happy that the bad guys got defeated and the good guys got through. But the fact of the matter is, of course, is that even the bad guys are God's creation. But the women, why aren't they criticized? Well, it seems to me because only the people who go through trauma can then have the right to speak about it. And the trauma of coming out of slavery and being saved, going through that sea, those women had the right to celebrate. Not the angels, didn't go to the sea. The women had the right to do it and had to express their emotions. But the notion of gratitude, B'nai Yisrael is in formation. I don't have to tell you all. Not to mention, we're in formation at that moment. We're in formation for the next 40 years, and quite frankly, for the next couple of 100 years, even up to David HaMelech, if not past then. So do we think we know? Could you imagine the Jews who came through the sea? They have an understanding of God? No, not the way we think we have an understanding of God. They experience something, but they don't have really a name for it yet. They don't have, and also remember, our narrative tells us that almost immediately they start to complain, things were so much better in Egypt, all this. Where
are the leeks and the cucumbers?
Exactly. Where could gratitude come in? And therefore, that's why there's no gratitude, because it's not the place for gratitude. It'd be unrealistic. They barely know what they are dealing with.
Right.
I see up on my screen my painting. What's going on here?
So I just wanted to bring to the conversation for context. This is Richard's painting from the series, and he focused very much on the role of the women from the beginning of the Egypt story and how they were key contributors all the way to this moment in Beshalach. And so his piece was very much in conversation with your question as well.
Right.
Well played with the apple and Chava, by the way.
Aha, right. Well, the apple became a fig. So what can I tell you?
Right. All of this can be understood as spiritually developmental.
Right.
So if this was a pediatric moment in spiritual evolution, they wouldn't have had a language for God.
Perfect expression. Wow, exactly. A pediatric moment. Yes. But I'm so happy that you brought this up, because it gets us into the depths of what these people, our ancestors, went through and how they felt.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. That's wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And continuing with the developmental theme, without getting too philosophical, I think there's a great wisdom to the old adage about Torah, ein mukdam lucha b'Torah, there's no before or after. And so one natural implication of that is that all of us carry that in us. If it's true that we can look to Moshe Rabbeinu, alav hashalom, Moses our teacher, peace be upon, as being the neshama klalit, the soul that took all of us, our little fragments, and held the whole, it's only a small leap to imagine that all of us still have that pediatric, I don't know what this is, and run like hell sense, and yay, we made it, and what have you done for me lately? And faith and patience and love and loss and rebellion, we all have it. It's why this story that we keep telling every year is one that we keep telling every year, because it's telling our story not just as people or our people, but in our own psychological pieces. So in the moments where we don't know which way is up, and in the moments where we might say, what is this, to use one of the four sons, the four children, because we're all those four. We're all the wise. We're all the rebellious. We're all the simple. We are all the we don't know what to do. We don't know what to ask. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Could I'd like to just mention that one of the things that I learned and have learned to love is that the story never ends. I've been reading also a book by Mark Gerson called The Telling, about the Haggadah. And he talks about how important it is to understand that this is not a story, this Haggadah. It's a guide. And one isn't looking for satisfaction. At the end of the story doesn't end to our satisfaction. It doesn't end. That we must keep living it and keep telling it. It's just very exciting and interesting to think about,
Mm-hmm.
and about living this way.
Mm-hmm.
What it tells us about how we could and should and could live our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Kahana asks about that like kind of we've demonstrated a little bit of if they didn't have gratitude at this moment, it kind of weakens their state of mind. Perhaps they were just freed, they just saw all of these miracles, and then all of a sudden, how could they not be like in complete faith of God? And then the moment after, they immediately start complaining about where's the food. And so it kind of shows their weakness of mind. But at the same time, we have this continual narrative of Pharaoh, who is proven wrong and then concedes and then changes his mind, and God hardens his heart. And so kind of who are we supposed to follow as the protagonist in all of this when both sides are kind of competing and reneging, and that frailty of resilience kind of pokes through in both corners?
Oh, what a great question. And I want to amplify the question, because if you remember your Jacob story, and Kate's rendition of the pathway evokes this for me. Vihine sulam mutzavalza, and here is this ladder set on the ground, verosho magia la shamaima, and its head reaching toward upstairs. The malachei Elohim olim v'yogdim bo, and these angels of God are going up and down. And Jacob has this dream, and I'm going to go all surfer dude on us. Dude, this is like, whoa. This is the gateway to heaven, and like, oh, there's God. God was like in this place, and like I like didn't know. And then he wakes up, and a few sentences later, he's bargaining with God. If you're with me on the journey, and you feed me and clothe me, and you take me where I'm going, and you keep me safe, and you bring me back, then you'll be my God. Where did this wow moment go? And the mystics went there. It's like we're both of those. We're both of those poles. We're mochin de gadlut. We're in expansive mind in that wow moment, and then we're in mochin de katnut. We can't be in mochin de gadlut when we're driving in traffic. It doesn't help. And we can't be always in mochin de katnut, because then we won't have the peak experiences. Moshe Rabbeinu is not always in gadlut. You want water, you rebels? Bam! God wasn't in Godlut all the time. Godlut. All right, Moshe, I've had enough of them. I'm going to smite them, and I'll start again with you. And Moshe has to talk God down and say, yeah, but what will the Klingons think? You're going to have to get through me. You're going to do this, you might as well wipe me out of your book too. I don't imagine, therefore, that spirituality and the authentic spiritual path needs one hero, because no one sits on the top of Sinai and meditates and is always in dveikut and in that cleaving place of spiritual communion with the oneness of all things. Moshe loses it, the people lose it, God loses it, Jacob loses it. Miriam
Loses it.
What are we, chop liver? Did you see what my brother did? He married a Cushite woman. And so I don't feel like we need, or Torah is inviting us not to need, perfection. Even though we try to valorize the divinity of Torah and the divinity expressing itself through Moses, who got about as close as one can get if one understands it that way. And so we could even take some side with Pharaoh. Bo el Paro, it begins in Parshat Bo. Come to Pharaoh, says God. But why would God say Bo and come unless God was with Pharaoh? Wouldn't God say go to Pharaoh? We're all fractals. I hope that's helpful. Probably challenging too. At least that's my 2 cents, my 2 shekels. Kate?
I don't think I can expand upon that one.
We don't know. We'll have to be with the question. What is it our tradition says? Never let a good answer get in the way of a good question.
So much left hanging in the air. What's also so beautiful about the piece is that it's you don't have just one individual, one age kind of crossing the sea, but you allow the timeline to go all the way back to kind of an anachronistic interpretation of it, where we're continuing to cross, and those people kind of take on more modern images the further back you go in the painting. And I think that there's truth to that we're all continuing to cross. Susan, give us the good word. Do you have a question?
Hi, Kate, and everyone.
Hi, Susan.
What I see in your art is that the people as they come up from the bottom are carrying burdens, and then when they get to the sand across the water, they cast off their burdens and they're just light. And those beautiful dancers, I can't get over the shapes are so beautiful, but that they've let go of the brownness and of the heaviness, and they're just in the world of light.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what they're meant to be expressing. Thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that. And thanks for coming.
And so with that, and there's just, it's such an expansive piece. The conversation can turn and spin in so many different ways. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for giving so much of your, of just continual willingness to go deeper and to dive further and further into the conversation. After each conversation, I'd seen in my inbox just these, like, this was an idea that came out, and perhaps we can open up this midrash. And it was just such an expansive, chavruta. It was really beautiful to witness, and very inspiring. And if anyone wants to see the Dvar Torah and the art, you can find it at the website, theameninstitute.com. It's a very powerful Dvar Torah as well, moving through. And you can see the art on the Instagram page, the Amen Institute. And if you want to hear this conversation again, it's on the Facebook page. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, for sharing a celebration of Torah, of art, and of deepening the conversation, seeing the texts with new eyes, and with the strength of the visual interpretive power. We were able to open up and uncover the sea floor that had never been seen before. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Devere. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Devere, so much for this opportunity.
That's great. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Stay well, everyone. I'll see you on the other side.
Oh, dear.